Hello and welcome back to the channel. It's Mark from PowerSonic and Apprentice 1-to-1. Today's video is all about builders and some of the work that they will often produce when they have a go at the electrics. Now I must say, before I get into this, there are loads of builders out there who will only use specialised contractors for varying trades on their projects, including the electrical work, and they are fantastic. But equally, we all know as electricians and plumbers, joiners, whoever else, there are builders out there who will claim to be able to do all areas of the construction trade, and sadly that turns out not to be the case. And it's really frustrating for us as electricians when we're kind of trying to emphasize safety to consumers and price these things in a way that enables us to do that, and then typically a builder will come along and say, you don't need to pay that expense, I can do that included in my job quote for the whole package. And this is often the result. So there are a few issues in this video. Matthew and Nathan were out on this job yesterday. They weren't impressed with what they found. They put a bit of footage together for me, looking around the loft and taking in some of these issues. We've got things like exposed conductors outside of junction boxes. We have got a fan that was just venting straight into the loft space. There's cables that have been run out of zone, cables that are lacking any kind of support throughout the loft and in other areas of the building. There's spotlights that are not fire rated, which is a contentious issue with it being the upstairs of a terrace property. And also there are the same spotlights that shouldn't be buried under insulation or touching timbers, and it clearly states that on the actual label of these products, and yet they were doing both those two things, buried under insulation, touching onto the timber within the ceiling construction. And that often comes from the installer not really understanding what they should be doing. They don't see it as an issue because they don't familiarise themselves with the manufacturer's instructions or understand the dangers. I don't think any of this kind of work is deliberate. I don't think this is people trying to set out to do things that are unsafe and potentially dangerous. It's a lack of knowledge and people stepping into areas of work they're not competent to work. So it's really important when you are at the quotation stage with your clients to emphasise how an installation should be put together and the reasons for it, because often you can find you're competing in a way that's not apples and apples, if you like. So somebody's putting a price together that is nothing like what should be, and usually a consumer just looks at the bottom line. So it's really emphasising in there exactly what you deliver in terms of quality is a top tip from me, and why it is important that these things are done. So obviously you'll see in the video when we jump to Matthew and Nathan, we do have these Wago connectors that are literally just thrown into the loft. We do have CPCs being used within twin and earth cable to carry line voltages, another typical move when somebody's not running the right core cables for a particular switching arrangement. We've got an extractor fan that just vents into the loft space itself, which, you know, whilst not electrically dangerous, doesn't make a lot of sense in looking after the building as a whole. And bearing in mind all of these connections are exposed all over the loft, that moist air, yeah, it's not really a sensible scenario to set up. It's like you're trying to encourage the operation of overcurrent protective devices by forming your own condensation over all the electrical terminations. Now, something that isn't shown in the footage of this video is that the lighting circuit was installed on the non-RCD side of the consumer unit. I've asked the guys to get some pictures and footage of that today while they're back on this job. Now, obviously, all of the cables that are embedded in the fabric of the building now must have that RCD protection, but even so, lots of this lighting circuit was in the area of a bathroom. It's just dog rough, and it's really not the way these installations should be put together. And I want to put this video out there to maybe try and help a little bit for consumers who are having electrical work done and their builders are telling them that they can do all aspects of these kind of things, to check that they are registered and accredited to be able to do that work, so that they have qualified electricians in their team. If you're having work done that involves the installation of a new circuit, that work is going to be needed to be notified through building control. Likewise, the changing of a consumer unit. You must ensure that that is done, because the fines come back to you or as the homeowner. So first thing to do is to check that they are registered with one of the CPS bodies, the big two, the NIC and NAPIT. any contractor will be able to give you their registration number, and you can go and check that on the website. So there are some builders out there who will have electricians in their team, but check and make sure, because often they're not registered. They don't put this work through building control, and it's not done in the correct way. The other side of all of that is you should receive an electrical installation certificate, and that will give you the test results for the tests that have been carried out on that new installation work, and clearly state exactly what has been done. Now, any electrician will give you that with any work they're doing. It's for you to keep for your records, for if you go and sell your house in the future, but also to ensure that that work's been done correctly and safely, and your home, your family and your possessions have not potentially been put at risk. So before we go and jump to Matty and Nathan having a look around this loft, question for the electricians out there, as you're watching this, how would you approach the coding of this if it was an EICR? In this case, it isn't. We're there to rectify these problems and put all of the issues right. But if you were on this job looking at the 18th edition Amendment 2 and knowing that none of these cables have been installed with the use or protection of an RCD, and the methods carried out, as you will see, how would you code it? What kind of presentation would you be putting to your clients if this was a typical job you came to inspect during the works of an EICR? Without further ado, let's go and see what the guys found. They've put together the footage in their own unique style. I'm not going to edit it or voice it over. This is raw electricians' work that will be getting taken place exactly like this by countless small contractors up and down the country right now. It's not edited together in a fancy way. We don't have a film crew. It's not all P's and Q's. I hope you enjoy it. These are two proper Sparkies going about trying to sort out a dog's dinner and wiring. Enjoy, and I'll jump back to have a chat with you once the guys have finished.
There's Matthew pretending to do some work. Okay, today we're going to look at some shit electrics in our loft. Got the Jesse Pinkman outfit on. Probably let Mark do the rest of the voiceover for this, but I'll do one in case anyway. Fucking hot here. Okay, so we've got a lot of connections here, man junction boxes. Obviously this is all dead now, so that's not good. I don't know if you can guess what this is for, or was for. So we had an extractor fan coming out to the bathroom, but it's just not ducted outside anywhere, so obviously all the hot and moist air is just coming up into the loft, which ain't going to be great for damp. There you go, just more shit connections everywhere like that. These are all for the spotlights. There's a load up here for each room. That's pretty much it, to be honest. Yeah. Right, I'm just running a new cable on here. So let's get a conduit. Yeah. How much do you want pulling out the loft?
It just needs to be routed nicely. If you go under that pipe. Do you want some cutters so you can...
Well, yeah, you'll just cut it and then I'll put it underneath after.
That's some cuts off. Just cut it where it's taped.
Just tape down. Yeah, you can see it there, look. Yeah, should be.
So you will have seen there exactly what the guys were faced with. It involved a whole rewire to the upstairs lighting circuit on this property. They've had a builder in to refurb the entire house. They're starting with the top floor. They've fully replastered. They've done all new woodwork, proper brand new bathroom. Walls have come down. There's been all sorts of modifications taking place, and they've also done the wiring. Now, having left it in that condition, what do you think? Go into the comments and let me know what you think of that as a standard of work. Hopefully consumers who might come across this can go and have a read of some of those comments and see exactly why it's important you do seek the services of a qualified and competent electrician. And sometimes they do work for builders, sometimes they don't, as was the case here. So again, looking through the issues that you can see in this video, there's the spotlights that have been installed straight onto timbers. There's all of the exposed connections. There's cables with no support, strain on those terminations and connections, chop blocks as well that have been used, all buried under the insulation to start with, by the way, out of sight. It's only once the guys have gone and had a dig around they found this. They were called to go and have a look because the fan was not operating correctly. It didn't seem to be extracting any moisture. So they asked us to go and investigate after the builder claimed to have installed that fan. And obviously with insulation laid over the top of it and no duct into the outside world, the result is essentially it does nothing. So yeah, that was the reason for our attendance, and the more the guys dug into it, the more horrified they became. The decision was made, we weren't prepared to work with any of the existing cabling on that install. It all had to come out and be done again. It had been rived in all over the place. There was nicks in it here and there. It's at the stage where it's just cheaper and more cost effective for the client to start again. As you will have seen, the guys were lucky that this was an old 1950s property, and usually they built those with conduits in the wall. And fortunately, they were still in use and in place. The builder hadn't removed them, so they were able to draw down to the new switches as well. Obviously, having seen the condition of the cabling in the loft, they weren't prepared to leave any of that in place. It was cut short, it would need joining and extending anyway. So they decided, while we're on with it, let's drop some new cable down to all the switch fronts and make a proper job of it. The issue with the spotlights was slightly more difficult to overcome. Obviously there was patching up of holes, and they're on with that right now. Some of them need moving away from those timbers. I know you can get LED cold running spotlights now that you can put next to timbers. It's still something I don't like to do, and neither do the guys either, so we're going to get those repositioned. Obviously the terminations have all been got rid of. Essentially a lot of those extensions of cabling and junction boxes and things that had been used in the loft weren't even necessary. That, you know, we couldn't understand why they'd been wired in that way. They'd made what was an easy job quite difficult. So they've all been got rid of. They've brought all of the cabling back to a central junction box that lives near the loft hatch. So there isn't any terminations in the loft at all. All of the switches and final pendant wiring points come back to one junction box, and this is something we've started doing on a lot of rewires of late. And the idea is, if there's changes need to be made to the lighting arrangement or the inclusion of any smart controls, it's as simple and easy as possible for someone to come along and be able to do that. And I've asked them to record some footage of that today. So typically it involves a Wago XL box. You bring all of those cables back together, set your light switches up. It's basically bringing all of the ceiling rows, traditional ceiling roses, back into one place. And they used to wire up properties like this in the 60s and 70s. If you rewire a lot of properties from that era, you'll be familiar with the big rectangular boxes that you would find all of the lighting cables coming back to. This is harking back to that. I know some people do 2-plate, 3-plate. This just seems like an easier way to set up future controls. So we've started offering that on all of our rewires, and this is what Matthew's done. I think as well, it was just a nicer way to work within the loft. Get your cables secured and up and out the way and bring them back to one central place. Hopefully they're there getting some footage now, so I can include that in a video that follows this one. As I said, I'm away on holiday. I'm going today for a couple of weeks. I have got some other videos recorded and ready to release. Some of them around the school EV works, some of them looking at some tools. So there's a bit of everything coming to the channel while I'm on my holidays. And yeah, I hope you enjoy those. For anyone who has got any questions on this video, please drop them in below. I'd love your feedback on the quality of this work. If you've got examples on social media that you've found yourselves, tag me in those posts. link to them in the comments. I think it's really important we get the message over to consumers that sometimes paying for an electrician to do the job properly when it's your possessions, family and home on the line is money well spent. I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Give this a thumbs up or thumbs down if you've enjoyed it. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It makes a big difference to making these videos reach as wide an audience as possible. And I will see you on the next one.